Hi, friends. Welcome to First Chapter Fridays. Welcome back. So I actually did this about an hour ago, and I had the audio going through my microphone like I want to do, but for some reason it didn't record. So I have this beautiful video with no audio. Um, and I tried to troubleshoot it a little bit and haven't been able to figure it out. So I'm going to work on that for next Friday, our next First Chapter Friday. Right now, I'm just doing it again using just the microphone and my MacBook. So, the audio quality isn't going to be what my recorded books would be, but that's okay. This is about sharing stories, telling stories together, and yeah, I just having a good time. So First Chapter Fridays, if you're new here, this is a place where I read the first chapter of a book on Fridays. Today it's going to be a public domain book. This is actually The Princess and the Goblin by George McDonald, and I'm going to be producing this public domain book. I start recording it next week. But this is also a space for indie authors to share their work. So if you're an indie author, if you want to have your book first chapter of your book read for by me on a Friday, please send there's a Google form. Please send it. Reach out to me if you can't find the Google form, and yeah, we'll read it. You just have to have still have the audio rights. You not have not sold the audio rights to somebody else, and make sure it's not already produced in audio. And we'll take it from there. So this is, like I said, The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald, and let's get into it. The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Chapter 1. Why the Princess Has a Story About Her. There was once a little princess who— "But, Mr. Author, why do you always write about princesses?" "Because every little girl is a princess. You will make them vain if you tell them that." "Not if they understand what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" "What do you mean by a princess?" "The daughter of a king." "Very well. Then every little girl is a princess, and there would be no need to say anything about it, except that she is always in danger of forgetting her rank, and behaving as if she had grown out of the mud. I have seen little princesses behave like the children of thieves and lying beggars, and that is why they need to be told they are princesses. And that is why, when I tell a story of this kind, I like to tell it about a princess. Then I can say better what I mean, because I can then give her every beautiful thing I want her to have. Please, go on. There was once a little princess whose father was king over a great country full of mountains and valleys. His palace was built upon one of the mountains and was very grand and beautiful. The princess, whose name was Irene, was born there, but she was sent soon after her birth, because her mother was not very strong, to be brought up by country people in a large house, half castle, half farmhouse, on the side of another mountain, about halfway between its base and its peak. The princess was a sweet little creature, and at the time my story begins, was only about 8 years old, I think, but she got older very fast. Her face was fair and pretty, with eyes like two bits of night sky, each with a star dissolved in the blue. Those eyes, you would have thought must have those eyes, you must have thought, must have known where they came from. So often were they turned up in that direction. The ceiling of her nursery was blue, with stars in it, as like the sky as they could make it. But I doubt if she ever saw the real sky with the stars in it, for a reason that I had better mention at once. These mountains were full of hollow places underneath, huge caverns and winding ways, some with water running through them, and some shining with all colors of the rainbow when a light was taken in. They would not have been much known about them, had there not been mines there, great deep pits with long galleries and passages running off from them, which had been dug to get at the ore of which the mountains were full. In the course of digging, the miners came upon many of these natural caverns. A few of them had far-off openings out to the side of the mountain or into a ravine. Now, in these subterranean caverns lived a race of strange beings, called by some gnomes, by some kobolds, by some goblins. There was a legend current in the country that at one time they lived above ground and were very like other people. But for some reason or other, concerning which there were different legendary theories, the king had laid what they thought were too severe taxes upon them, or had required observances of them they did not like, or had begun to treat them with more severity in some way or other, or impose stricter laws. And the consequence was that they had all disappeared from the face of the country. According to the legend, however, instead of going to some other country, they had all taken refuge in the subterranean caverns, whence they never came out but at night, and then seldom showed themselves in any numbers, and never to many people at once. It was only in the least frequented and most difficult part of these mountains that they were said to gather even at night in the open air. Those who had caught sight of any of them said they had greatly altered in the course of generations, and no wonder, seeing they lived away from the sun in cold and wet and dark places. They were now not ordinarily ugly, but either absolutely hideous or ludicrously grotesque in both face and form. There was no invention, they said, of the most lawless imagination expressed by pen or pencil that could surpass the extravagance of their appearance. And as they grew misshapen in body, they had grown in knowledge and cleverness, and now were able to do things no mortal could see the possibility of. But as they grew in cunning, they grew in mischief, and their great delight was in every way they could think of to annoy the people who lived in the open-air story above them. They had enough of affection left for each other to preserve them from being absolutely cruel for cruelty's sake to those that came in their way. But still they so heartily cherished the ancestral grudge against those who occupied their former possession, and especially against the descendants of the king who had caused their expulsion, that they sought every opportunity of tormenting them in ways that were as odd as their inventors. And although dwarfed and misshapen, they had strength. And although dwarfed and misshapen, they had strength equal to their cunning. In the process of time, they had got a king and a government of their own, whose chief business, beyond their own simple affairs, was to devise trouble for their neighbors. It will now be pretty evident why the little princess had never seen the sky at night. They were much too afraid of the goblins to let her out of the house then, even in the company with ever so many attendants. And they had good reason, as we shall see by and by. That's the end of chapter 1. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back again next week, next Friday. Should be 12:30. Sometimes I will have to adjust the time if I have some other things booked on the day. But we'll be back with another story. It is possibly going to be an excerpt from a short story that I wrote, or possibly one from an indie author that is incoming, but I don't have it quite yet. So we'll see. Come back here next Friday. Look forward to it. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful day. And please reach out if you're an indie author and you want to participate. Please, again, just reach out. Have a great day.